one thing I do better than anyone else is I can take complex concepts and ideas and distill them into something digestible, simple, understandable, etc. So that's what I did in Bitcoin. That's the skill that I've leveraged in business all my life. I'm usually the guy, I'm a very product oriented CEO, so I can translate between devs, designers, sales, go to market, admin, operations, all of these sorts of things. So I guess I would say I'm a master translator of complex ideas and concepts.
So many of us get stuck in the details and the weeds, going down rabbit holes, trying to figure out the calculus when we don't have the basic arithmetic down. And so what are some ways that we can think about how to translate these amazing amount of information that's coming towards us? How do we distill that down to only the essential things that really matter right now?
I mean, that's a hard question because I actually think it involves some of what you mentioned about going into the weeds. I think you somewhat have to spend your 20s messing around in the weeds so that you can develop a sixth sense towards, how to distill things, because life is this constant game of explore, which is you sort of go wide and you get in the weeds and you waste a lot of time and then you exploit. So the brain is this operating system which in fact, the whole body is an operating system that's learning all of the time, right? And this is why sort of language models and AI and all this sort of nonsense is never going to be as powerful a learner as a human, because we learn through multiple different senses in very, very complex ways. But what we do is we kind of take in all of this data and we crunch it consciously and subconsciously, and then we kind of take the mass and we end up distilling it. And different people do that better. Some people do it more consciously than unconsciously. Some people are really talented. Some people have the capacity to do that really naturally. I got like some autistic friends who can take all these major concepts and like turn it into, a one-liner and they get it, right? Some people don't have that. Some people just don't have that genetically, biologically, whatever, right? They're just not wired that way. But to answer your question, like how can we do that on a more regular basis? I think it involves one, understanding that the Pareto principle exists. So oftentimes amongst the mass of information, that there will be some segment or fragment of it that is more important than everything else. And doing your best to discover what that is, and training yourself to constantly look for that 20% is going to be really important. But then, yeah, number two is like there's no substitute for doing the reps. People
Mm.
think that there's some sort of shortcut to becoming a savant or, someone who can do all of these sorts of things, and then they, want to shortcut their way through life in everything. But there isn't like reps get you there in the end.
It's interesting you bring that up. You can take an average performer and turn them into an elite performer simply by having them doing enough reps, and with the right guidance, of course.
Yeah, it's
Um,
it's not practice makes perfect. It's perfect practice makes perfect.
that's right. And elite athletes, Tom Brady, Tiger Woods, Kobe Bryant, even some of the old school guys like Larry Bird, uh, these guys were at the top of their game. Some maybe still are. And they go to the gym and they take their shots and they get their shots in. Larry Bird made like 500 3-pointers before he would leave the gym. And that was what gave him the edge, because he made sure that he put in those reps, because he needed to know, how does it feel to get this right? Even though I already got it right, I need to keep constantly reinforcing that. And, you're right about, hey, in your 20s, you kind of got to wander around in the weeds to know what the weeds look like. So that
Yeah, because you
later
don't
you
know
can
the
stay out of
difference. Yeah,
them.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, totally. Totally. You got to make those mistakes. I think that's one of the things, a lot of people talk about, in the entrepreneurial circles, oh, you got to fail, but they don't sort of tell you why you have to fail. The reason you have to fail is so that you can develop the pattern recognition to sort of know where the line is and what's wrong and what's messed up and what's stupid and what's smart and all that sort of stuff. So you got to have a background to have a foreground. And that's really the reason for failing. It's not just building thick skin, and all those ancillary benefits matter as well. But that's, in my opinion, like knowing what the flame feels like is important.
Well said. And so, speaking of knowing what the flame feels like, There has been investing in Bitcoin specifically has been an up and down roller coaster over the last 10, 15 years. What
Since the
are
beginning.
what are some of the ways that somebody like can hold through that set of flames?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's understanding what Bitcoin is, right? So people treat Bitcoin as an investment, and what they need to do is do the reading, do the understanding of like Bitcoin is not an investment. Bitcoin is money. So it's the thing you trade your investments for, right? So the only number that counts is not how much my Bitcoin went up or down. It's how much Bitcoin do I have. It is the only commodity, monetary construct, whatever you want to call it. It's the only asset, if let's give it that word. It's the only asset that exists on planet Earth that is fixed and finite in supply. And it has the best attributes for money. So good money is divisible, portable, recognizable, homogeneous, um, portable, and scarce. Nothing can compete with Bitcoin across those dimensions, which means at some point over the next decade, 3 decades, 10 decades, it will become the global money that everyone everywhere in the world uses. And if you have that coupled with the fact that you have a finite supply, and you realize that all of the capital, every single thing on the planet, from the computer we're talking on to the car we're driving to the house we live in to every single stock, every single company, every single bit of gold, every single bit of money, everything in the world will be measured in Bitcoin. If you sort of get that through your head, what you realize is that one Bitcoin will be enough to buy the city of Dallas in the next 100 years, right? Like not a fucking building. I'm talking about, and not a block, like the whole city of Dallas. So the game becomes not how do I make money out of Bitcoin. The game becomes how do I acquire more Bitcoin before the rest of the world wakes up. Um, because at some point we will all be on a Bitcoin standard. So when you sort of flip that script, you realize that the ups and downs and the round and circle doesn't mean anything. All that is a reflection of the current macro understanding. And when I say macro, I don't mean markets. I mean the collective understanding of humanity of what this thing actually is. 99.9% of people could not tell you or could not give you an accurate definition of money, let alone what Bitcoin is and why it's better money. But in time, with the stickiness of Bitcoin and the fact that it doesn't change, and as time passes, it continues to grow in economic mass, more and more people will choose to put a portion of their total wealth in this thing. And as I said, it's finite in supply, so it's always going to go up and to the right. So if you kind of get that through your head, then the game doesn't the ups and downs don't matter anymore. It's the downs are actually good because it gives you an opportunity to acquire more Bitcoin from the dumbasses that are selling.